Hello and welcome to Adobe Live here on Behance. My name is Aaron Nace of Learn.com, and joining me today is the fantastic Katelin Kinney. Katelin is hey Katelin, how you doing?
Good.
Welcome to day 2. I'm going to give you a sweet little intro because I love your work. Katelin brings like vibrance, creativity. Her use of color and light is fantastic, but the thing that I like the most about Katelin's work is how much she like thinks about the concept and like what a brand or an identity or like a company is going for with their product, and then incorporates that into her imagery through like use of props, which she makes a lot of her own, coloring, styling, all these things. You can tell a lot of intentionality behind her images. It's not so much like, oh, let's do this because I think it'll look pretty. It's like, you can really tell she thinks quite deeply about what message she wants to convey, and also works very hard to make that a reality in her images. So I'm very excited about today's broadcast. We're continuing from yesterday's broadcast, which was an absolute blast. So if you haven't done that, you can check that out after the stream. Now, speaking of our live streams, be sure to start off your day. If you're learning Photoshop, every single day at 9 a.m. Pacific, you can join a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Wade Acuff. This is a cool opportunity to have like basically a prompt and a challenge. You can turn in your results and kind of build a community around that. So that's fantastic. Now, if you are joining us on either YouTube or another social media platform, welcome. We encourage you to subscribe and leave a comment. If you're on Behance, you have the unique opportunity to chat live with both of us. So if you have any questions for Katelin throughout the broadcast, be sure to leave them in the chat portion of today's broadcast. I'm super excited. Katelin, how you doing? Can you start off by showing us a little bit of your work for anyone who didn't join yesterday's broadcast, and let us know what we're going to be learning today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro. So I do like to work with products a lot. As you can see on my website, I work with people some, but my main thing that gets my heart going is conceptual product photography. What I always try to think of is making the product look very precious. So I think yesterday we did talk about the Olay project down here, where I'm compositing the product into a scene. I'm trying to think of what does Olay want to show. They want to show softness, they want to show hydration, and that it's a night cream. I liked that the moon was kind of cradling the product to make it look precious. So today I figured we'd just check over real quick on one of the other ones, this Mike's Hard Lemonade one I did. Same sort of genre that we're working on today, which is using a commercial product, thinking about the brand, what they're trying to say about their product, and then creating a surreal scene around that concept. So for the Mike's Hard Lemonade, I live in Tucson right now. So I thought, hey, that's like a perfect opportunity to use some landscape photography from like the beautiful variations of the desert. I like that the desert's, very dry and arid. It gets really hot. So that makes you think of like thirst quenching and something very refreshing. So the solution to that is Mike's. So essentially in one photo, I'm trying to show you the problem and the solution all at once to make Mike's Hard Lemonade look very appealing and, precious, is being cradled by this sort of like ice cave with the fruits all in it. So yeah, I really like making my own props when I can. So this ice cave was just frozen ice that I kind of chipped away at, added some fruit in there. Landscapes were things I shot around my state of Arizona. And yeah, it's pretty cool conceptual stuff, kind of showing off products.
These are beautiful. I love the concept.
Thanks.
The execution is fantastic. And I want to work for Mike's Lemonade so I can hire you.
Yes, Mike's Hard Lemonade, please call me. So yeah, but that's what we're getting ready to kind of jump into. So I'm ready whenever you are to head back into the image we were doing.
Yeah, let's do it. The chat
Cool.
is super excited. CJ says, yay, Arizona. And yeah, Sam Peter says, hi, what's up? So good to see you guys. Our chat is looking great. Marsha is super
Nice.
excited to see you back in the chat today, as well as Stony Bradwell. So if you wouldn't mind, can you kind of start off by turning some layers off and on and kind of showing us what we did yesterday? Like, let's see the buildup. Like, how did we get here?
Right. So this is the progress we made yesterday. Let's kind of turn some things off here. We started out pretty raw with just the octopus tentacle, which I've put in this group.
Yep.
So the octopus tentacle, I saw somebody yesterday ask what it's made of, and it's just made of clay, just like that air dry clay that you would buy I bought it at Walmart. So pretty much this product, this shoot in total has cost me like, I don't know, between the clay and like the little sprinkles, which I got in the baking aisle, and then the vegetable glycerin is the drip. I mean, I think in total, this photo is going to cost me around $40. So production costs can be really low and you can make something look very expensive. That's the thing that I really love about product photography, is that you can stretch $1 wide, my friend. Very wide.
That's so good to know. Yeah, and product photography is it doesn't take a lot of space much of the time. You can do it at any time, day or night. Usually doesn't require a huge production staff as well. So I haven't done any commercial product photography, but I have just, played around with it and really enjoyed it. The freedom and, I feel like product photography is really easy to get in the zone with product photography.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff some of the stuff I do, the client needs to be on set so they can, approve of things and kind of art direct as they go. If they're hiring me to also be the art director, a lot of times I'm just shooting in my home studio. And like you said, I can shoot that any time of day that works well in my schedule. I kind of have the freedom to kind of dig in and be creative, try out stuff that might not work, that I might feel like if a client is there, I don't necessarily have the time to experiment that much. So yeah, I love product photography. There's so much freedom in it, to create your own concepts and to also just be on your own schedule and explore and experiment. It's fun.
Fantastic. Sure. Fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to turning these layers back on and seeing how we made this.
So we had the octopus tentacle here. I think the first thing I did was dropped in the ocean, because I tend to want to create like the environment around the thing first before I start dealing with like color correcting or lighting or anything like that. And then I put on this front blurred water line. On the water line, we did a little bit of color work to kind of bring through the look of the tentacles there. Otherwise, it was just teal pretty much the whole time. So that kind of flattened it out a little bit.
Totally.
And then dropped in a sky. And I did talk about yesterday how important it is to match lighting whenever you're doing compositing. So I lit the octopus tentacle and the chapsticks, which is what the product is, in case I hadn't mentioned that. We're using EOS chapsticks, which is those little balls that I think are just like so satisfying with the design of them. The product is amazing. They have no idea who I am, so that's not sponsored. I'm just saying that I love that chapstick. Okay, so since the lighting is coming from the upper right corner over here in my home studio, there's also a fill light in front, but the main key light is coming from behind. Then I need to choose a sky that's going to match that. So I ended up choosing this sky. We did quite a lot of like color correcting to adjust like the grayness that was on it, to kind of make it match the scene a little bit more. I really liked how it was blue all around it. That drew the viewer or customer's eye straight to the middle, which is where the product is going to be, where we placed the chapsticks and the little suckers. So that was the basic environment. And then we started adding in a little bit more detail. Like I put some of the sparkles on the edge of the tentacle with an overlay layer and just a sheet of this like glitter paper that I had shot.
Nice.
And then we started adding, by the way, I added in the drop correctly today for those, who were here yesterday. Yeah. So for those who were here yesterday, down here, the drips had like a dark blue background. Ideally, I would have shot this on like a medium gray because it would have been easier to overlay stuff. I did not have a medium gray seamless or paper available for me yesterday or 2 days ago whenever I shot this. So I just used a dark blue because I knew the scene overall was going to be bluish. However, for the drip that I wanted to have at the top, it's obviously, you can see it's like in front of this very, very bright sky. So that was not going to work very well. So after toying around with it a little bit, I just decided like, nah, we need to do this right. So I reshot it last night to have a lighter background to it. So now we get like a little whip and a little movement from it. I really like movement in photos. We warped this front line to add a lot of movement. warped the drip. And today we're going to be adding in like some wave splashes and stuff to kind of accentuate the movement a little bit more. So what else did we add? We started adding bubbles to the foreground, which actually I do remember, Aaron, you said something about like you had an idea for using, I think, the smudge tool under the water yesterday, and I never got back around to asking. So if you have that in mind, let me know what that was.
Oh yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun. Do you want to do it now?
Yeah, sure. Let me finish turning on the layers real quick, just so I know that. And then we started adding in the chapsticks. So these little chapstick balls, I thought they kind of looked like octopus suckers, and I liked the idea of them. They're a satisfying shape to begin with, but I liked the idea of them like sucking right into the octopus suckers. And I also really want to make my products look like they're precious. So I liked the idea of this octopus, whether it's friend or foe. It could kind of be either, because we have like this dark, ominous ocean down here, but we also have all these fun little like Lisa Frank, I keep referencing her, sprinkles and stuff. So it could be friend, could be foe, but whatever it is, the octopus clearly is wanting these little chapsticks. So it kind of makes them seem precious and desirable. Okay, let's get to the smudging thing, or whatever you had the idea for, Aaron.
Yeah, so I thought the smudge cool, like when you're looking through water, it kind of like things kind of like you distort and lose a little bit of clarity. So I thought it could be fun to use the smudge tool to do that. Now, we could do that below the bubbles that you added. So the bubbles would be on top of the distortion, or we could just do it on top of anything. So really whatever you want. But with the smudge tool, there is an option to sample all layers, which is kind of nice. So you can actually create a new layer wherever you want in that layer stack. Like if you wanted to just smudge the tentacle a little bit, or, kind of do everything, you can create a new layer, grab the smudge tool, hit that sample all layers, and then, kind of give it, some of that. There we go at the very top, sample all layers. Yeah. And then just kind of give it a little bit of that like distortion that you get from looking through water. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think I might have affected the layer mask of something just then. Hold on. Oh, now I see it going. That's the one thing about the smudge tool that's a little like when you go crazy with a huge brush, like it takes a while for it to think
and catch up. Does.
Yeah, that definitely. Okay, let me lower my brush and try that again. Let's zoom in so you can see the effect for sure.
Yeah, if you make it smaller brush, yeah. And then sometimes what I find too is like, just like on your layer masks where you had that thing where you felt the edges were a little too sharp. Sometimes at the end of a composite, I'll do a smudge on like one of the top layers, like those bubbles that you have there kind of in the center. Like if you felt like those were a little bit too sharp, you could just kind of click those and like just wiggle them a tiny bit and with the smudge tool. And like, it really helps to kind of like bring together the resolution for composites.
I love wiggling the smudge brush. Like I said yesterday, I think the smudge brush is criminally underrated. I feel like this is probably, aside from the pen tool, this is probably the tool that I use the most, honestly. So, okay, question. I'm curious. I feel like it's the smudge tool is grabbing, I think it feels like it's grabbing the layer mask of this guy up here, which I'm pretty sure is above him, like right here. It kind of feels like it's...
Right. So I think what's going on, because it's set to sample all layers, it's probably just like moving that layer a little bit, and then you're seeing something. So you could also, if you wanted to, grab the smudge tool, like if you wanted to just like erase that smudge layer you just did, and then do a smudge layer on the very top of everything. Obviously, we know that like that might be like a finishing step or something like that, because that is that sample all layers with the smudge tool. But it's
so cool.
It is cool that you can turn this off and on. So,
I use the smudge tool all the time, but I'd never used the sampling all layers on just a blank layer. I wouldn't have even thought that it would have actually done anything if it just had a blank layer. So that's really cool. Yeah. I agree. I'm going to do this as like a final step, just so I don't mess with like layer masks.
Definitely. I think that's a good call. Yeah. Like at the end, just like smudge it. And I'll do that a lot. Obviously compositing is difficult, and a lot of the times what you see is like if the edge is too sharp compared to the background, or the focus isn't tight, right? Or dead giveaway, or even if like the resolution for two photos is different. It's very noticeable. So sometimes a smudge tool can just kind of like harmonize a composite back
Right.
together. I'll do it just like super subtly.
Yeah. And just for anyone who's looking and wasn't with us yesterday, we've not added in any sort of shadows or lighting to any of these chapsticks. So that's what we're going to be digging into a lot today. So this awkward popping out guy, he's not going to look so awkward here in a little bit. But yeah. And also, you know, along with the resolution thing, I feel like I've been doing quite a bit of retouching for other clients, and they're doing a lot of very like natural lifestyles, and they want a lot of grain in there. So whenever I'm retouching, I have to add noise quite a bit to different layers in order to kind of match the grain. So yeah, grain / resolution, softness of like focal edges and everything, all things that you have to keep in mind when compositing for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So looking at this, when I was looking at it yesterday after this stream, I started thinking that I kind of wanted a chapstick here too, just because I have to balance my brain between artist brain and advertiser brain. Like, yes, I love that I sculpted this little octopus tentacle and I want to show off all the little suckers, but really this is about the product. So I'm going to add in just one more chapstick just to fill it out. And also, you know, to show all their different like colors and variations. Like if the client was wanting this, they're going to want more product and less tentacle suckers. So I need to be thinking more like an advertiser. For sure. So I'm just going to use the pen tool, do a quick little path around here. Also, I see one of my lovely cats has left a hair on the chapstick. So I'm going to need to just like healing brush stamp that out real quick.
There we go.
I swear their fur gets everywhere. You think like I had just taken this chapstick out of the box, and somehow within the 3 seconds that it was out of the box, I have a cat fur on it. It's a little ridiculous. Okay, so path, make selection. I'm just going to make a new layer with it. I don't really feel like I need to be careful with these pixels because I have this photo that I can always reference back to.
Totally.
Not feeling some of these little tiny bubbles on there. Kind of feels more like a blemish instead of styling.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. I'm going to copy that layer, come back over here, and put it alongside some of the other layers of chapsticks. Okay, and just like I did yesterday, I want to turn this into a smart object immediately because I know that I am going to be sizing this up and down quite a bit to try to get the right size. So if I size it all the way down, my computer is so laggy and slow today. So if I size this all the way down and I'm like, oh, nope, too small, and size it all the way back up, because it's a smart object, I don't lose any pixel data whatsoever. So perfect. Smart objects all the way for the win. So I definitely want it here. That is looking too small. That kind of looks about right. I also like that the logo shows really clearly on this. Branding is very important whenever you're doing product photography. So I like that I had the lid off of some of these, so I showed the actual chapstick itself, but this one did show up pretty well, although it was at an angle. So I know that the client would really like this logo in particular because it's straight on, it's right there at eye level. This one's kind of covered up, so definitely needed a little bit more branding in there.
Okay, yes.
So I'm going to add a layer mask. So essentially what we're going to start digging into here is cleaning up all these chapsticks in the little suckers. So making sure they look like they're actually sitting in this space. Can't decide if that's too big. Gosh, it's really close. This might be a little bit, just a smidge too big. That is also another tricky thing about this, because the octopus tentacle is forward in camera here and then bends backwards. The chapsticks are like descending in size essentially. So definitely want to keep that in mind, making sure that it's, consistent kind of with the scaling of these. I think that's about right. You can see behind you, we started working on shadow work yesterday for just that one. So that's kind of where we're headed.
Yes.
So let me clean up this edge here some. A little bit harder of a brush. So as I'm painting this edge, I'm thinking about how deep do I want this chapstick to look like it's inside this sucker. I kind of like the idea of having a little bit of the blue sliver, but if we have to lose it for the sake of, the physical layout of it, then I'm okay with that. But I kind of want to show that it's a split a split color since that's like an actual product feature.
Totally.
I don't know. I'm unsure. Let me see what it looks like without the blue. I don't want to force something. See, I think it actually kind of looks better without the blue. So I don't really want to force it. If the octopus tentacle looks a little bit better without the blue, then we're going to go without the blue. I don't want it to look like it's like barely plopped on top of the sucker. I definitely want it to look like it's settled down into the space, like snugly in the grasp of the octopus.
Yes.
Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Yeah. All right, so let's start playing around with the shadow of this to kind of make this sit in its place. If I rotate this up a little bit, what's that look like? Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit more. So I'm basically going to kind of mimic the shadow that I'm seeing on the chapstick here. So I see that it's a line that's not super hard. It's soft, and the main part of it stops about here, but then it also falls off around here a little bit. So lots of different ways to create shadows. I know there's tons of different options out there. I use multiple options. Definitely don't stick with the same one each time. For this particular case, since there's so many chapsticks, I like the idea of having a blank layer that I group with the chapstick, just so the shadow and the chapstick are together and I don't accidentally nudge or shift or do anything to separate those.
Totally.
So I'm just going to do a blank layer under this one. I'm going to go ahead and group them so I don't lose them. So here is the top chapstick, and here's a blank layer. I'm going to have a brush with a very soft edge, and I'm going to actually just sample a dark spot from that chapstick and just start painting.
Nice.
And like I said, the shadow is complex. It's not just one shadow. So I see like a dark middle section, and then I see a medium section on this side and a medium section on this side. So I'm going to paint the dark section first. I'm going to switch that to probably multiply. Yeah. I'm going to add a layer mask to it, and then I'm going to really up my brush size and just kind of soften the edge of it a little bit.
There we go. Looking good.
And so, like I mentioned yesterday, I actually learned this aspect from watching Aaron a long, long time ago, whenever he first started talking about learning how light really works and bounces off of things. This would not create just a blank shadow. They're bouncing off of each other. So the light pink is grabbing light and bouncing it onto the tentacle. The tentacle that's like light orange is grabbing light and bouncing it onto the light pink chapstick. So there's going to be kind of like a cross reflection happening here. So I'm going to, on my layer mask of my shadow, paint out a little bit of an edge. And then I'm going to come back in and paint again the sharper edge that's like nestled right up against the chapstick.
Definitely. Yeah, there we go. Like some bounce lighting.
Yeah. So that light pink is going to be bouncing onto the tentacle, which is going to create a little bit of a reflection on it. So that's what we're doing right now. It's too bright, obviously. So I'm going to go back in again with my brush and paint white over the whole thing. But now I'm going to just fade it. So I'm going to fade what I just did so I can kind of look at it and decide how light do I really think that reflection would be. That might still be a little bit too bright. Let me go back into my fade. That looks a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking that this down here is probably still a little bit too dark, but let me flesh out the rest of the shadow first, and then I can always go back in and kind of adjust that. So another blank layer on top, and this time we're going to do kind of like the medium part of the shadow. Going to grab a medium color from there.
Nice. It's looking good. Yeah, shadows are notoriously difficult to make.
They're very complex. Like
very complex.
When I first started out doing compositing, I was like, oh, a shadow, just like a drop shadow, a shape. But I mean, I've painted in shadows that have been 5 different layers of shadows, because when you really like look and scrutinize, like just in life, if you look at something that's casting a shadow in life, it's there's a lot of direction. There's a lot of different layers and things going on.
Yeah, very much so. And obviously it depends on the light sources that are affecting that
Absolutely.
object. But
Yeah.
sometimes I'm at a restaurant and I'll look down at my plate and it's got like 12 shadows. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And then I look up and there's like 12 lights above me and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. 12 lights, 12 shadows.
Yeah, definitely. And just, studying light in real life really helps compositing a lot. So just kind of explore around and like look and see what is the light doing.
It does. I'm always looking like such a weirdo when I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm just like staring at a building and everyone's like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, I'm looking at the light. Like I'm analyzing how the light is covering that surface. And they're like, all right, you weirdo, but it's interesting. Once you start paying attention, it's like, whoa, there's a lot to learn here.
Some of my photo friends and I, we would send photos that we really love, like studio product photography and stuff, to each other. And then we would try to analyze what the lighting setup was by like, I see a reflection here. Oh yeah, but I see a drop shadow here. So we would try to like deconstruct what the lighting setup was essentially.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's good exercise.
Yeah, to have friends in similar industries that enjoy the same thing,
Definitely. So I think there would be a little bit of an edge shadow, just a teeny bit, if the same was actually nestled in there. Oh, I still have it on sample all layers. I'm like, whoa, that just totally blurred the entire tentacle. Okay, let me lower that some. Looking good so far. I feel like I made it a little bit too sharp, so I'm going to go back in to where that's right there. Let me feather that out. Yeah, shadows is just like a very finessing thing. It takes a little bit.
It takes a little bit, yeah. But no rush, no stress, no pressure. And because you're working non-destructively, you can turn layers off and on, change them at any time. No worries. Yep. And I always find it's helpful when I'm working on something difficult like this to take breaks frequently, kind of like come back, look at it again. I'll send it to my friends, see what they have to say. I'll send it to my phone, see what it looks like on my phone. As many little like tools and tips as we can get. So
yep, it can absolutely. I never let an image be posted without my boyfriend looking at it very scrutinizingly. And he's not in our field at all, but he's just, like a layman looking at it. But he's like, no, I think it looks great. I'm like, no, like you're not allowed to leave until you tell me one thing that looks off. I just keep pushing until he says something.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Someone you trust, someone who's going to be nice, someone, know what I mean, who's going to tell you the truth, but not try to like hurt your feelings or whatever. It's so important to have feedback.
Definitely. So I'm going to leave the shadow on the tentacle for now. I might go back in and adjust a little bit, but I know I also need to add a shadow to the chapstick itself because like I said, they're bouncing off of each other. So there would be a little bit of a shadow bouncing up here. And also some of this is preference. Like, do I want it to look like there's a lot of space between the edge of this sucker and the surface of the chapstick? Because that's going to affect it quite a bit. If there's absolutely no shadow at all, then it's jammed right up against that. But if there is a deeper shadow, then there's a lot more space going on.
Totally.
And I'm still trying to decide too if I want it to look like there's space. Kind of like the idea of there being a little bit of space right in this area just because the edge of the tentacle itself is not perfectly circular. It kind of bounces out a little bit.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. I might go back into that one a little bit later, but I'm going to move on to the next one for now. See, this definitely looks too dark already. See, I say I'm going to move on and then I'm like, nope, that looks off. Okay. Oh man, you can spend forever on shadows going back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, I just made a big tutorial just about creating shadows and it's like 3.5 hours. Yep.
Yeah. Shadows are no joke. No joke. Okay,
Once
that looks a
you
little bit better.
yeah, once you get it, you're like, ah.
I know, like it just clicks and it's like, okay, that looks like it's actually really there. There's a little bit of something going on over here, but I'm going to come back to that later. So I'm going to move on to this guy right here. The drippy one. Where is he? Oh, I think this was him. No? Oh my goodness. See, this is why you name your layers. There. Yep. Okay. Here we go. And then this is the lightning layer that we put on top of this drip to kind of correct it. So I'm going to go ahead and group those guys so I don't lose them. All right. So let's start with the edge here that we need to kind of work with and correct some on this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Painting in with a slightly harder brush. Definitely want to fill up the space that like tentacle sucker is showing. I don't want to have any extra space there.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking a tad too soft. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's looking like he's kind of snug down in there.
There we go.
Might even raise him just a little bit. Okay. And there are certain times when I use a pen tool and certain times when I don't. This is just one of those times when I don't. Like the sucker itself is a pretty organic shape. It's not a perfect circle by any means. So I kind of like being able to paint it as I go and kind of feeling the wiggliness of it, which I think would just be a little bit harder for me. Oh, you know what? I just saw that I moved the drop and not the...
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I moved the chapstick and not the drop. Little things. I should just go ahead and clip that down so I don't do... Oh. Yeah. Okay. It's clipped. It's in a group. I think we're okay for now.
There we go. Nice.
Okay. There's a little bit of a dark edge happening here. I'm going to open up that layer. It's a smart object, so I can just open it back up.
Perfect.
And so for me, whenever I'm dealing with like a tiny little sliver of an edge, what I like to do is just temporarily, I like to choose like a super neon color and just paint. And well, that's actually similar to the color of what the edge is, and just paint it behind it so I can kind of see what's going on.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a dark edge there. What if I did like a white that might show up? Yeah. Okay. So in this instance, white works better because I'm dealing with an object that's already very close to white and I want to get rid of this kind of like dark halo edge. So I'm going to come in. This time I am going to use a pen tool and I'm basically just going to kind of shave off a tiny little bit of this edge. Another way I could do it is just, select on the outside and clone stamp up to the edge. I've done both. Kind of just depends on my mood that day, I guess. So I guess I'm in a pen tool kind of mood today.
I've got a couple suggestions for you too.
Yeah, go for it.
If you are interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Let's finish up with what you're doing now because I don't want to interrupt your flow, but then we'll throw in some alternatives.
Cool. So this is what I would typically, one of the things I would do, just select it and then I would just cut it out.
Cut it out.
Like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works really well. Well.
What was your method?
So a couple things that I would do, if you're here in the smart object, you can do this, but I have a workflow that works without, with being outside of the smart object too. So if you wanted to go ahead and save this and then pop out of the smart object.
Yeah. I saved it with the white behind it. Let me go back in, delete that, save and go back. Okay.
Nice. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just create a new layer on top of it and clip that layer.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And then just grab the brush tool and then just like grab the color you want and then paint just towards the edge there. Yeah, just to kind of lighten it up. And then sometimes I'll even grab a little bit of the background color and paint it on like a low opacity so it looks like the background color is kind of wrapping around the object.
That tends to be actually for me, that's one of the last things that I do. I don't know why, but it's just the light wrapping around like the color from the sky going on the edges. I don't know. That's just like a last little cherry on top thing that I like to do at the very end.
Totally.
It's like a satisfying, like, that looks wonderful.
Yes. Finishing touches.
Yeah. So, okay. Let me go back to shadow work with this guy. All right. Let's do blank layer underneath him. Okay, so all these are going to be pretty similar with like the directionality of the shadow because everything was lit in a very similar manner. So
Yes.
I'm going to grab, that might be a little bit too colorful, but I can always lower the opacity. So let's see what this looks like when I put it on like a blending mode of multiply. Let's see. I'm going to lower the saturation. That looks a little bit better. Might even lighten that some. That looks a little bit softer. Yeah, this lighting was interesting that I decided to do because it's very hard light from behind, but it's also a very soft bounce light in front. So we get kind of a mixture of really hard highlights, but the shadows kind of drop off to soft edges for the most part because of that fill light. So we have an interesting combination whenever creating shadows here. So again, I'm just going to like paint out this little edge reflection that would be happening.
Definitely.
And then come back in again and paint the hard shadow. That would be nestled up right against the edge. And then since that bounce is obviously a little bit too bright, I'm going to go back in again with my brush and then just fill in the whole layer mask. But now I'm going to fade it to see kind of what opacity.
Yeah, that fade commit is so nice.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Fade is great. Okay. For a base, that's not too bad. It's creeping over here a little bit too much. It feels like to me. Oop, that was too much. Yeah. Okay. Let me go ahead and start shadowing on top of the chapstick itself. So again, we have the shadow on the tentacle, but we need to create the shadow on the chapstick because it would not be bouncing up and reflecting light near the bottom of the chapstick if it was actually like nestled into this little cove that it's in pretty much. Also, I see a dark spot that I can't tell if that's the sucker or the shadow. I'm thinking that's the actual like chapstick starting to show the sucker, but maybe not. Okay.
There we go. That's looking good.
Let me check the shadow. Oh, it was the shadow. Okay. So that's just a tad too dark. Gonna smudge. Wait, was that the shadow? This is the part where it starts to get tricky. You're like trying to figure out like, wait, I know I see a little dark spot. What layer is causing that little dark spot? There have been times where I really have like lost a section of, it's creating an effect and I've turned off every layer and I cannot figure it out. And it ends up being like the weirdest thing that's causing it. But until I figure out what's causing it, I think like, I'm just going crazy. Like that, there's no way that this is creating this effect and I can't find it.
I've done that so many times too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna build up the shadow just a little bit more on the chapstick. Okay. I feel like this little area of the tentacle would have a little bit more shadow, just a tad. So is that a layer mask area? Yeah, okay. I might actually even need to paint back in that layer just a tad. I'm gonna like overpaint it so I know that I can come back in with the layer mask brush and kind of customize it. Back and forth we go. This is the painterly aspect of Photoshop that I was talking. Oh, which by the way, yesterday I had mentioned an artist who does a lot of like photo composite, but she uses a ton of painterly aspects to it.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of her last name, and I looked it up last night, and I couldn't think of it because she doesn't really use her last name for her like art purposes. So if you just look up Nina Y and put like fantasy photography, you'll find her. But she does some really, really amazing like surreal fantasy photo composites, but a lot of it looks like it's actually also digital painting that she mixes in. So it's very fine art looking, which I mean, I love. It's not my genre that I do, but I love looking at it. Kind of makes me think almost of Miss Anelia. If anybody follows her, that's like her pin name for her surreal fashion photography. But Miss Anelia does some really insanely cool surreal fashion photography that the sets are just amazing. The fashion itself is amazing, even though I'm not a fashion person, but it looks amazing to me. But very cool stuff. Okay, the only thing I'm thinking is that like this little divot in the chapstick would not be quite that bright. I think there'd be a little bit more of a shadow. So for this one, I do think I am going to use a pen tool because that's a fairly sharp edge. So I'm going to kind of like mimic the shape of that edge there. And the shadow wouldn't be over the entire thing, but I'm just going to select it. Okay, work path, make selection. And now I'm just going to paint in a shadow that's just going to kind of be like a gradient. That feels better to me. Because if I turn that on and off, like there isn't enough light underneath it to be bouncing up to reflect that much on it, just on the edge of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which let me turn that to like multiply. And also that's looking too sharp. So I'm going to use the smudge and do the wiggle, wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle. Smudge tool saves me all the time. Okay. That looks better to me. All right, I'm going to collapse him. Just turning him on and off. Yeah. Again, like usually what I do when I'm painting shadows is I'll do like a first pass of all the shadows, and then I'll go back and try to be a little bit more scrutinizing of super tiny details just to like clean it up. But for the moment, I just want to get the first pass done. Where's this guy? See the underwater one? Wait. Oh, is he the orange one? Oh, he's the lid. Okay. Yeah, I might leave him as is until we do like that final step of bringing in color from the background and like wrapping around him. I think that would really be the only thing I'd probably do with him. So underneath would be that orange guy, which we already did the first pass of the shadow. Moving on. Oh my goodness, I'm clicking him over and over again. Okay, there's the front drippy one. Which actually, I think this one will probably have a lot less shadow work because it's straight on, so it's pretty similar. Definitely want to do like some shadow on the tentacle a little bit. I don't think we'd see a whole lot of shadow on him, but let me go ahead and group. And then I'm going to do blank layer, pull it underneath. Okay, let's do dark shadow color on the tentacle.
That's looking good.
Yeah. Oop, that might be a little bit too far over. Okay, turn it to multiply. Might be a tad. Well, I don't know. I mean, I really like how dark it is, but let me lower it some. That seems probably more realistic. Turning on and off to just kind of check. I think it's okay, but let me just test out to see if this should actually have a little bit more light creeping in right there. I'm just looking at this like sharp highlight on top of the chapstick itself. Yeah, so I'm thinking the shadow wouldn't really hit until where that sharp highlight is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there we go. That looks better. Just like super subtle, tiny changes between having just like a blurred edge here versus actually sharpening it where I see the highlight. And that's something that I like to think about with compositing is that I let the object in front of me inform me as to where that shadow is. So I'm not really having to just totally make it up from my head. Like I'm looking at the object in front of me and letting the highlights and shadows on that object tell me where I really need to be putting the shadows on the other thing that I'm painting. Okay, the other chapstick is, where is this guy? Did that one. Was that the lid? That was the lid. Okay. Did that one? Oh, this is the underwater one because it has the color on it.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. This one has a lot of lighting work that we need to do. So first of all, let's clean up the edge. Also, he's a little sharp compared to especially underwater.
Yes.
So let's clean up the edge first and foremost. A little bit harder of an edge. I'm gonna set him down in there a little bit more, which means this side would be up. Okay, edge-wise, I think he's okay. So, okay, first of all, just the blur aspect. Since he's a smart object, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a blur directly on top of him.
Yeah.
Obviously, way too much. Actually, that was kind of right on. I think probably where I need it. So 0.8. Yeah, I mean, subtle stuff, but still, that was just way too sharp. And like the bubbles and everything, we can blur as well to kind of match that. Okay, lighting. This guy's going to be a bit of a bear. So I'm going to add another layer on top. Blank layer on top of the chapstick. I'm going to grab the shadow. Still had a really hard edge. Okay. All right, definitely need to darken up this whole bottom edge. Let me switch to multiply and see what that looks like. Gonna soften an eraser brush. I just don't want the thing that I just painted bleeding over too much into the hard shadow that's already there. So let me go back into this area. Okay, that looks fine for pass one. And like I said, I do lots of passes for shadows. It's not just one layer. So that's fine for pass one. I'm going to do another layer on top and still be working in this area down here. I could also try just a curves layer. Let me try curves layer instead of blank layer again. I'm going to lower the whole white side of it. Kind of darken up the darks. Paint out the layer mask on that effect that we just did, and now I'm going to paint it back in. It's looking better because if he's underwater, there's really nothing underneath him to like bounce up that much light. Like there might be a teeny bit from the tentacle bouncing up to get him, but not very much at all. So he's looking okay for the moment. So let's go ahead and put a shadow on the edge of that tentacle, which again, I'm just doing a blank layer under each one of these chapsticks, just like for organizational purposes. So I don't have, just like a ton of different shadow things clipped down onto the tentacle. And then I have a hard time finding what shadow is with what object.
Right.
Okay. So he's going to have to darken up a lot as well. And I did for this shoot think about actually just like putting the chapsticks in the suckers. The main reason why I didn't was sizing. Like that was going to take a ton of clay to make this thing as big as it needed to be to actually hold the suckers. So I was like, you know what? This would be a really good compositing exercise to put those in the suckers.
Yeah, perfect. We can all learn how to create shadows and, it is a great compositing exercise.
So also down here, I just did like a tiny, like the smallest little line there for the shadow, because since there is a tentacle and since it is curving, the light would be hitting the edge of that tentacle. Just how it's hitting the edge of the chapstick, it would be hitting the edge of the tentacle. So I don't want the shadow to go all the way up to the edge of the tentacle. Tiny, tiny little details like that. And same thing for over here. Don't want it to go all the way up.
Yep. All the details make a difference.
Definitely do. Okay. That might be just a tad too dark. Let me lower the entire opacity of that. That looks a little bit better. Soft shadows. Okay, I do need to still put like the reflective aspect in there. So I'm gonna do, probably should have done this first before I did the tiny little edge swipes over here of the shadow because I'm going to just fill it all back in with fill, but we can just repeat that step. It's all right.
There we go.
Okay, so I have the reflection, and again, that reflection would be light coming from the chapstick itself, kind of like bouncing down on top of the tentacle. And then I'm coming back in, painting the layer mask again, just on the edge. So it creates this kind of rounded look to the lighting.
There we go.
Put that edge shadow in.
Yeah.
Okay, and now just like with the other ones, that one is like way too bright to be just on its own. So I'm going to paint in the whole thing, and then I'm going to fade. Still too bright. That looks a little bit closer. Okay. And then just I'm going to repeat what I just did, which is painting in a little bit of edge. So essentially painting out some of that shadow.
Yeah.
And then same on this side. Just a little bit. So it's so subtle, you guys, but like just that line there is going to help your eye read because it's following the line of the chapstick. So just make sure your shadow doesn't go all the way to the edge if you're doing something like this. Just follow the shape that's in front of you.
Yes.
For sure. Okay, see that guy already looks like 20 times better than what he did.
Looks much better. Marsha in the chat is asking, what's the difference between fade and opacity?
Oh, okay, great question. So opacity, I mean, they're really similar, but basically opacity is a setting that's in lots of like your brush, your opacity settings up here, the layer, your opacity setting is here, and you can change that at any time. A fade is pretty much affecting the action that I just did. So it's just like a quick shortcut to being like, oh, that brush stroke that I just did, I wish I would have had my brush on 20% opacity instead of 100. So instead of undoing it, changing the opacity of your brush down to 20 and doing it all over again, all you have to just do is fade, and it immediately like lessens the opacity of the specific action that you just did. So quick little shortcut.
Yeah, and great explanation.
Thanks. If you have anything else to input, like you're the wizard, so let me know.
No, you nailed it.
Okay, see, even just scanning around, I'm looking up and I'm like, nope, that still needs to be darker up there. So I like doing a first pass of shadows because then I start to get a little bit more critical as I go along. So I'm definitely going to address that guy again. But first, let me do the last chapstick, which I think is this one. Yep. All right. You are up, buddy. Let's put the blank layer underneath it, group it, and let's start painting in a shadow. Grabbing a dark color from the actual chapstick itself. And I do that instead of using black because like we said, like light is bouncing off of each other. So this is like a bright green neon thing. So that bright green neon color, the actual color is traveling with the light. So that's going to be bouncing onto the tentacle over there. So grab, like if you're painting a shadow, grab a dark color from the thing that you're painting a shadow from instead of just doing a black. That's going to add a lot more like realistic depth to the eye.
It makes a big difference.
Definitely. Because actually, let's just switch that to black just to like look. Well, obviously that's like way too black, but if I lower the opacity, like, I mean, the shadow looks okay. It doesn't look horrible, but it's not nearly as good as that like light, like kind of pukey looking green. That's what it would actually naturally be if it's bouncing onto the tentacle.
Definitely.
So definitely pull color from where you are painting. Okay, so just doing the same process again, painting in the shadow to begin with. I'm going to do a layer mask, and then I'm going to paint in that like little reflection edge that we've been doing on all these. And then painting back in the sharper edge of that shadow. Okay. And actually, even just looking, I'm going to smudge because I can see that that's going to be too dark right up there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the layer mask. The actual layer, pull it down some. Okay. So going back in and doing the whole like fill and fade. So going to the layer mask, filling it all in again, and then just doing a quick fade. Another good thing about using fade instead of just like lowering the opacity of your brush is that I have my slider here. So I can just kind of like, you know, did I want to do that at all? That's 0. Do I want to undo it? That's 100, you know, and I can just find some place in between that I think looks right to the eye.
Totally. And you can change your blend mode with fade, which I don't do often, but it is there for you.
Nice. Yeah. So with this one in particular, because it's like such a neon green color, that would definitely be overpowering some of this peach that's showing through. So I'm going to do another layer and pull some of just the blank color from this neon, paint it in. And I don't know, we're going to play with the blending mode. I'm not sure if an overlay might be a little much, but let's see, maybe color, maybe just doing something as simple as color and then lowering the opacity of that. Yeah, that looks much better. Yeah, so if I turn that on and off, you can see like that peach wouldn't really be showing through because this bright neon is going to overpower that so much. So I definitely wanted to have some of that bright neon green kind of bouncing onto it. The other ones, I didn't really have to do that because look at the natural color of them. The color of them is already pink and peach. So we didn't really have to deal with that on the others. Okay, now painting the shadow on that specific chapstick, creating a clipping mask. Alrighty, and pulling dark colors. That might be too dark. Let's see. Let me switch it to multiply while I'm doing this. Yeah, I kind of like this one creeping up into the shadow that's already existing. And then I think I'm going to do one more like closer to the edge to make it feel like it's nestled down in there. So another one. This one can be a little bit darker. And I know that's way too big, but I'm going to go back in there and adjust that. Okay. Erase just to soften.
Good.
Okay. I mean, I don't really even need to switch that one to multiply, but I'm going to just for consistency's sake. Okay. Also, I just realized, did we even paint his edge? He looks really sharp. Oh, no, we did not paint his edge. I'm like, wait, what is happening here? Okay. Whoops. All right, let's go ahead and paint his edge because he's like falling out of the tentacle. We don't want that. Okay, I'm just going to paint a quick, like, rough edge first.
Yeah.
And then let me drag him.
There we go. So you can use those shadows you already made.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not want to lose the shadows. I mean, I can always adjust them, but okay, let me go back in and clean up this edge. And again, this doesn't have to be like, I'm not using a pen tool because this doesn't have to be and actually shouldn't be a perfect circle because I think that would actually cue off also that something isn't quite right because the tentacles themselves are a little wibbly wobbly and it also helps it feel just like it's more organically in there. And again, my favorite part is using the smudge tool and doing a little wiggle to kind of soften. Yes. And I did mention this yesterday. This is just a personal preference for me, but the edge, like the top edge of this, realistically would not be that sharp. Like we can see that it would be a little bit softer than that. For me, my personal preference, since this is about the product, is to keep the product a little sharper than what is realistic. Like that's a couple things. One, clients tend to ask for that anyway. Like they do not like when you put a blur layer on their product. And two, I mean, it's just like that's the nature of what I'm creating here. Like we're drawing attention specifically to the product. So for me and my personal taste, I think it's okay to leave it this sharp. If I was trying to do like an actual realistic fine art thing, then no, we definitely need to blur this top edge a little bit to soften it because look how soft the tentacle is behind it. So just a little, match it if you want, but if you don't want to with product photography, I think that's totally valid as well.
Yes.
Okay, I really like this guy. I think that his shadows are actually really, really close, like pretty spot on. So when I'm going, like right now, I'm going back over and just like looking at like a second pass, like what sticks out to me. And if anybody in the chat sees something like with the shadows with this chapstick, shout it out. This guy still doesn't look right to me. Let me go back into this drip guy because he looks too bright underneath, I think. Where is the drip guy? I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. Again, naming your layers could be very helpful here. Okay, so yeah, this whole section just seems bright. It just doesn't seem like it would be bouncing up that much. So I'm gonna do another layer. And I mean, if all else fails, like at least just experiment. Like if it doesn't feel right to you, then just put a shadow in. If it doesn't look right, then that's okay. No big deal. You can just take the shadow out.
Take it right back out.
Yep.
No harm.
That is the benefit of working in a non-destructive workflow.
Exactly.
Always save your pixels. Save them as much as you can. Let me turn that on and off. Yeah. Yeah, because that light, and then I need to like adjust the shadow on the tentacle because the light I don't think would be going very much past like right here. Like it's hitting the drop. I don't think the light would really be bouncing over here very much. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this drop might even cause a little bit of a shadow. That might be what my eye is seeing. The drop might be causing a shadow behind it. Okay, so let me do like a little drop shadow for the drop itself and see what that looks like. A drop shadow for the drop. And again, some of this is just like getting used to observing light in real life and learning to paint it. Like, you know, some of these are not really quick and easy Photoshop tricks of, you know, just like a brush stroke and you're done. So really exploring light and looking at it when you're out in real life, it helps a lot. It helps to definitely like inform yourself and learn. So like right now, what I did is I just erased 2 little spots in the shadow that I just made. And then I'm going to smudge it up a little bit to kind of bring like, it's the light from this drop here is reflecting into the shadow. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm going to switch this down to multiply and then probably lower the opacity a little bit. Maybe even a little bit more.
Cool. That was a great tip.
Wondering if it's too close to the drip. Trying to envision where the light is. The light is coming from behind it. Let me just play around with like actually warping it and see if that changes things at all. Edit, transform, warp. Because I'm just trying to, if the shadow was directly behind it, then the light would be coming from like almost in front of the chapstick, but it's coming from behind the chapstick. So that makes me think that the shadow would actually be warped and cast like over the tentacle a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think? That like a little bit too far? Edit, transform, warp. Maybe bring it back some.
Yeah, difficult to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit better. I think the shadow would actually meet at the top of this drip, but the shadow of the drip would be warped a little bit because the light is coming from behind it. So it would like cast the shadow a little bit further. And then I think I want to lower that opacity even more. Yeah. When I zoom out, that's starting to look a little bit more right.
Yeah.
I feel like I need some more shadow under the actual chapstick maybe itself. This one's a tricky one.
It is tricky. Shadows are, you know, they still give me trouble after all these years. They're very difficult.
They're just so complex. Like there's so much going on with them. And I mean, even in real life, if you're looking at a shadow, like sometimes I'll find myself in the car and I'll see like something reflecting or a shadow. And I'm like, where is that even coming from? Like you just, like the human eye doesn't fully understand shadows all the time.
Totally. Yeah. Light and shadow is so complex. It's like, you know, just kind of take it for granted. But when you got to recreate it, it's like, oh boy, this is hard.
Okay. The tentacle is something still not right here. Maybe that shadow shouldn't be there. I'm going to turn it off, but still keep it. The tentacle is either needing to be darker or lighter underneath, and it's ironic that I can't tell which one that is. So let's experiment. Let's try to make it darker. And if it doesn't look right darker, then I think that means it's supposed to be lighter.
That's the way to do it, you know?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, your eye will tell you. Like, your eye will tell you. So just trust your eye.
You'll know when it's right. You'll look at it and you'll be like, okay, good. Looks good.
Yeah.
You know, but sometimes, how did I get there?
Okay, that's it when it's darker. Let me try it lighter. Like, I think it should be darker over here. Like, okay, here we go. Oh my goodness, we're getting really nitpicky here. I like that it's darker in this section, but I think it should actually be even lighter in this section. So let's see. Actually, let me just do like a grabbing from the background. I know I said I was going to wait till the last minute, but maybe that's what I'm seeing. That looks better, I think. Although I think it's creeping in just a little bit too much over there. And then, I mean, I'm not done with that, so I'm not just letting it blur over to the edge. Hold on. Right. Going back to the first shadow over here. Yeah, because it's almost like it would be cupped like right on the edge of this, like curving tentacle. Okay, so back to the brightness thing that I just did. One option is to clip it down to the tentacle. I kind of just want to keep it in this group because this group is getting so complex with the shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down to the tentacle itself. Where you be? And then just grab the edge here. Wait. Okay, you know what? Sometimes the edge gets a little bit lost, so I'm just going to make a copy of the layer, apply layer mask just so it's a clean edge, and then grab the edge. Yeah. And then I don't need that layer anymore, but I'll go back down and delete that in a second. Okay, so back up. We are getting a lot of layers in here, so I know it's getting a little complex, but the light layer is right there. Okay, so now that I have the outside selected, I'm just going to go ahead and like cut that so it's not bleeding over into the sky. And now I can go back down here and delete this layer that I just used in order to get like a clean selection of the edge. Again, that all would have been pretty easy to just clip that down directly onto the tentacle, but just for organizational purposes, because this is getting a little bit complex, I really wanted to keep all of the shadow and lighting effects that are having to do with the chapstick within a group with that chapstick, just for my own sanity here a little bit.
Totally.
Okay.
One thing that I love to do is color my groups. Like if I'm grouping a bunch of different stuff together, you can right click on the eyeball right next to a group.
Let me see what group that is. I'm trying to find, okay. That's an orange chapstick. So let's
you can right click on the eyeball right there and then give it the orange color. And then boom, how easy is that going to be to find?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, down here with like the pink one. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I need that's like a very quick and easy thing. As opposed, naming a layer is not hard. It's not long, but I don't know what it is about most of us that do Photoshop. It's just like, but I don't wanna. Like, it just takes time. It's really annoying.
It is.
But annoying. Right clicking and selecting a color is a little bit easier.
Yeah, a little bit easier. And then when I deliver PSDs to clients, usually I'll name all my groups and then I'll color all my groups with like similar things. And then it's like, it's so easy for people to be like, oh, cool, colors. Yay.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. This is the trouble one. So I'm going to make that gray because he's given me a pain in my neck. So don't really like him. I'm trying to look for this other pink one over to the left. That one.
Nice.
This needs a little bit
more. Run to the restroom real quick.
Okay,
cool. I'll be right back.
This one needs a little bit more like shadow, I think, around the edge. Let me make that one red. Cool. Now I feel like we're all alone without Aaron. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Okay. So adding in some more shadow, like this just looks too soft to me. So I am going to add in like just one more sharper, darker shadow line. think I want it to be like on the chapstick though. So let me drag and pull that up there. Okay. A little bit darker. Yeah, that's looking better. It was just a little bit too soft, and there's going to be a little bit more like depth and space beneath that chapstick. So wanted to bring that out, but also you don't want to bring it like all the way to the edge because there's not space, not between that edge with the way that the angle is with our eye. So that would only be like on the back edge there. That looks better. This looks like splotchy over here to me. Does that look splotchy to anyone? Is that on the actual tentacle? I think that's one of the layers that I put on the tentacle. Not that one. Oh, I think it's, it's where these two layers overlap. Yeah. And I was doing just one layer with all the other ones. So interesting why I chose to do one layer versus two. You know what? Let's just delete those real quick and do it over again. Won't take long, I promise. Okay. So doing dark color again. And wrapping it down. And then instead of doing two different layers, I'm just going to like feather it way out to have that lighter section. Better for organization too. I mean, like the less layers you can deal with, the better. Totally. Otherwise, as you can see, it starts to get a little messy. Okay, so I'm just going back and redoing this shadow real quick. There was some weird overlap happening with multiple layers that I did on there. So I decided to just switch it down to one layer. And also something real quick with doing like really soft layers like this that don't have a lot of like visual to it. I like to do remind me again, Aaron, what is this called? Quick mask?
Quick mask. Yeah.
Quick mask. Okay. Yeah. Like I like to just select the quick mask just to make sure like there wasn't, a tiny little spot out here that I missed. And I'm like, oh, okay. I couldn't even like see that with my eye, but with the quick mask, that definitely helps me to make sure that I'm not like missing any little slivers of paint that I've kind of sprayed around everywhere.
Totally. I also set up a keyboard shortcut for making a layer visible and invisible again.
Oh, nice.
That helps me out so much. I can show you how to do that if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. Let me finish up this last edge real quick. And then I'm horrible with keyboard shortcuts. I tell myself like I have so many in my head that I'm like, God, this would make my life so much easier if I just created a keyboard shortcut for this thing or this thing. And it's just always like, I'm in the middle of a project because I don't think about it if I'm not in Photoshop. So in my head, like I'm in the middle of a project, I'll take care of that, next week or tomorrow, whenever I'm done with the project. And it doesn't happen. It definitely does not happen.
I feel you. Yeah, I go through stages with keyboard shortcuts where sometimes I'm like, I don't want to learn any more of this. I'm full,
I'm done.
And then I go through little challenges with myself and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to learn like one new one a week. Or if it's like something I'm doing often, I'm going to just make it. And I'm always so glad that I do. It's like immediately I'm like, this was the best ever. Because like learning 100 keyboard shortcuts, no thank you, not gonna happen. But like one a week or something like that, it's like, yeah, we can do that, especially if you make your own, because then you can make something that makes sense to you.
Right. I mean, fair point. I definitely need to set some time aside to just like challenge. I mean, that's easy. It's like one a week. Just set the time aside and do it. I will say for like a client now. Oh yeah, do it.
Let's do one now. All right, so let's go to edit. Because I'll show you one of my favorites. So edit and then all the way down to where you see keyboard shortcuts. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be under layer. So go ahead and open up layer.
Okay.
And then you got to scroll down quite a bit. Keep going.
It's still okay. I was thinking it was a whole other menu there. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, keep going.
Look at all of these.
All in the layer. This is all in the layer. All right, start slowing down a little
entropy? What the heck is entropy? Like I know what the like concept of entropy is, but I've never heard that outside of like a scientific. That's so strange. Man, there's so much in here.
There's so much in here, and you can make your keyboard shortcuts for all these. So keep going down just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. There we go. Okay, here we go. All right, so where it says hide layers.
Yeah.
Okay, that one. You're never going to remember that keyboard shortcut. So I go ahead and click where it has the keyboard shortcut and then just delete that. Okay. So I use Shift Option Command V, which I remember is visible.
Like Shift Command Z?
Shift Option Command Z. like V is in visible. So
Oh,
shift,
visible. Okay.
yeah, Shift Option Command V.
Ah,
And then, but it's okay because it says paste special, which I never use. You probably don't use that either.
no. What is paste special?
It's like paste with extra options that no one ever needs. So
Okay.
you can hit accept and go to conflict at the bottom there,
Okay.
right? And then you're good. It applied it, and
Okay.
it'll take you to what it was. So you can just hit OK now,
Okay.
and now you have it. So hit OK. You're good to go.
Mhm.
All right. So you're on a layer. Go ahead and select the layer that you want to be visible and invisible.
Let's do like the whole front line.
Okay.
Thing
So now
it.
hit Shift Option Command V.
Oh.
And then hit it again.
Wow. Boom. Yeah, that is super quick.
So you don't got to go over there to that little eyeball.
Yeah.
Because that eyeball is kind of small. And for like what you were saying with the quick masks earlier is like having that quick mask to turn off and on is really helpful. But when I'm masking, if I'm like, did I forget something that's way over there? I'll just hit boom, boom, Shift Option Command V, that keyboard shortcut. And
so then you can like see it like flicker in your eye. Exactly. Makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah. And just a little tip for anyone watching, if you're on a Mac, it's if you hold Shift, Option, and Command, all three of those, they're usually available. And if you're on a PC, it's going to be Shift, Alt, and Control. Because if you just hit like Command V, obviously that's paste, right? So that's don't use those. But if you go Shift, Option, and Command, and then a keyboard, that works. So
nice.
Whatever makes sense in your own brain. But
cool.
Yeah, one a week.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely need to need to start getting on that. So for me, like, I still feel like there's an issue here, but my brain is done working on that for now. Like your eye will definitely get tired of looking at something for so long. And it's like, sometimes I just need to look at something else. And then if I glance up at it, my brain will be like, oh, whoa, like that's too dark or too light or whatever. So I'm going to move on to something else, which is I wanted to add a little bit of like wave splashes to the side of the tentacle. Because if a tentacle is like actually having movement coming up through the water, you're probably going to see like at least some splashes coming out, even though we're like at a pretty low angle because we're seeing like the edge of the water, but I still want to add just a little bit to the edge of the tentacle.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a couple of wave files brought up. If I can move you guys, this entire bar is up here. Okay. So here's one of my wave options. I'm going to just do a really quick like lasso tool.
Nice.
Was that the one that I wanted to? Which one do I want to start with? I think oh gosh. I like the curve in this one. I just can't. Let me try the curve in this one. Because I'm assuming like I don't really want to have just the froth because I feel like that would start to look a little bit collagey and cut and paste. So I like the curve of this wave. I'm just going to create a new layer with that because, again, I don't need to be careful with that photo. I'm not going to save that photo. I can go back and have those pixels anytime I want. Okay, I'm going to paste that just on top of the area where I have the tentacle. Yeah, I can already tell that I would definitely want that curve. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it a smart object. Why not? I mean, I'm not as concerned about this one as I am about the chapsticks because I knew that I was going to scale those up and down a lot, but might as well where you can. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of a splashing wave. Where do I want this? Okay, so I kind of, in my head, what I'm thinking is having like this line of the froth kind of following that and creating a layer mask right on top of it. So we still see like the water underneath, but we don't see the water that is on top of that froth. So in my mind, when I'm looking at it, what I'm trying to see is the edge of where the froth ends. So the froth ends over here. That's easy peasy. I don't have to do anything with that. I want the froth to kind of end at the line of the front water. So I don't have to deal with like, where do I blend that? Where does that end? So that is why I'm angling that. I like that. It looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to put a layer mask on it. And so like I said, I'm going to be painting just kind of along this frothy edge. But obviously it's not a straight line. So we're going to kind of scatter our brush a little bit. So first of all, though, I'm just going to create the general layer mask. And for this, I'm going to overpaint into the froth quite a bit actually.
Nice.
Because whenever I paint back, I'm going to paint that layer back in, and I'm going to use a scattered brush. So I don't really want to pick up a whole lot of the, like, this wavy blue behind it.
Yes.
So I want to have a lot of froth to work with whenever I'm doing a scatter brush.
Nice.
Okay. All right. See? I
There we
needed
go.
a quick mask just to make sure that I got it all.
Nice.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I really like the way that that's like the shape of it, like going against the tentacle. I think that looks pretty good. And then I would want to have a little bit of froth behind it, but we'll get to that in a second. So, okay, now I want to address this line here of the layer mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my brush. I'm going to go over to my brush settings. I'm going to lower the size of this quite a bit. And I have seen people use a brush that I think they've created on their own, because I don't think it's just like default in the library, where it's just 2 dots. So it like helps the scattering to be a little bit quicker. I don't have that like loaded right now, and I know it doesn't take long to create one, but this won't take long at all to just use a single dot instead of 2 dots for your brush.
Totally.
So hardness, I want to be pretty hard. Spacing, I want it spaced out. And then shape dynamics. Okay, size jitter, want it a lot. Minimum diameter, I want it low. Angle jitter, I want it a lot. Roundness jitter, I want it a lot. Man, this is like a lot to say. Also, with this sort of thing, this is where a Wacom tablet I would typically use. I don't have one in front of me right now, but a Wacom tablet helps a lot because you can control like the pin pressure. So you can like fade down the size or the jitter or all this stuff. You can totally control with your pin and how hard you're pressing down on it. Since this is just one quick line, I'm not that concerned about it. But if we were dealing with a lot more complex things, I would probably be busting out the Wacom tablet for sure.
Totally.
Okay. So basically, what we're trying to do with my teeny tiny brush is create like an edge that is like jittery, kind of like what the waves would actually be. So you can kind of see my brush bouncing around a little bit.
That's totally working.
Let me see if would it help if the spacing's actually, yeah, I don't want it like all the way. I want a little bit of space between it, but I still want them touching. Okay. Yeah, that's going to make it go a little bit quicker. So instead of it just painting like a straight line, you can see like some of the random circles popping up with the edge. And that kind of mimics this, you know, like the random bubbliness of the water.
Yes. All about making it random.
Yeah. Okay. Looking pretty good. And like sometimes I even go back and forth. Like I'll paint black on the outside with that brush, which actually for those viewing, like it's easier to see what I'm talking about. Like the edge is like very ragged. Because of all the scattering of the brushes. So you can use this for grass. I use this for grass all the time. You can use it for like a grass line. You can use it in hair or fur. This is really good for fur. So yeah, like just any sort of edge shape. There's endless combinations because you don't have to use just the round brush either. Whenever you're like adjusting all those settings and the brush settings, you can scatter and angle and minimum diameter all the brushes. So like I can't even fathom all the combinations that would really create, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tools. You can get in there and play around and get a lot more like realistic effects.
Yeah, so customizable. So with this edge right here, I think I kind of want to pull a little bit of froth in, but that's why I went ahead and created like a rough edge with it. Obviously, if it was just the water, it really wouldn't be that rough, but I want to see what it looks like if I pull a little bit of froth over there. Okay, that edge is looking better. All right, let me like clone stamp. This is a smart object, so I'm just going to go in. And this was the area over here that was kind of missing some froth. So let me just do like a really rough clone stamp. And this does not have to be like good at all. This is just getting a little bit in that edge that we just painted.
Totally.
a little bit of white. Okay, let's see. Save and see what that looks like. Yeah, it added just a teeny bit of white in the edge to help that. Cool. Okay. So with this edge over here, in my mind, there would be like little pieces flying up, like what there are down here.
Totally.
So I'm going to grab another piece of the frothiness. Let's use this one since we didn't use that one a while ago. Especially around here. Like I like using areas that have dark behind them because it's going to be pretty easy to select just the white. And also I am knowing that I really don't need to keep a whole lot of resolution because this is a very teeny tiny portion of the image. Oh, wait, I selected like the entire thing. There we go. Okay, so I really just want to add that froth probably behind the one that we just did. And then I'm going to point it up so we can get some of those like, woo, like bouncy up little pieces.
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to do select color range. Actually, let me pull this in front of the other one first, just so I don't have any weird selection things happening underneath the water in case I want to move it.
Yeah.
So select color range. I'm just going to select, drag, keep dragging. I can see over here my little section. And I'm going to bring the fuzziness down quite a bit. So I'm selecting just the areas that I'm like clicking, and I'm holding down shift while I click and drag to kind of select all the different whites that are in that area. Okay, now you can see my dancing ants that I have that selected. I'm going to do a layer mask. I'm going to put that back under. Okay, let's work with this a little bit. I might want to select a little bit more. Whoop, didn't mean to smudge the actual thing. Yeah, I think I want to select a little bit more of the froth. Let's delete that layer mask and go again. Actually, I only want a little bit of it showing too, like right there. This section is what I'm going for right here. So let's do the select color range. And then I'm going to bump up my fuzziness some. And also if some of the darkness shows up, we can kind of clip on a lightning layer to make it match the backdrop a little bit more.
Totally. Good call. We've got our artist spotlight in about 3 minutes.
Okay, cool. I'm excited to share the person that I really like to follow.
Yes.
Gonna lower the size of that. Okay, and bringing it behind. Cool. All right, let me layer mask out some of these edges that I don't want in there. So things like that. Don't want that. Don't want this giant. Oh, I still have the scatter brush on. I'm like, whoa, what is happening? Okay. All right. Let's get some of this guy out of here. Okay. I like the general placement. Color is definitely off. It looks a little bit more purple. So let me do an adjustment layer, color, clip it down. And there's too much magenta, so we need to go the opposite way. We need to have some green in there. Actually, that looks pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. This edge underneath it seems a little bit too sharp. So I'm going to go back into the front section here and kind of rugged it up a little bit again. Let's go back to our brush settings. Okay. We have the brush settings on. Just kind of like splash it up and bring it closer to those splashes so it's not looking like so separate.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks much better. So turning this guy on and off so we can kind of see. There's, hello, there we go. There's like flat, sharp edge. It starts to look Photoshop-y. So we add in a little bit of splash, and that's looking a little bit better. Probably I would want to add a little bit more to this whole curve, which I might do if we have time at the end. We'll see. So another thing before we jump into the artist spotlight about the color temperature of the entire wave, definitely need to fix that. It's looking like green. It's looking a little bit too green to me. Like it doesn't have enough cyan in there. So I'm going to do a color balance layer, clip it down. So since it's too green, let's add a little bit of magenta, not too much, because like I said, I'm not like a fan of heavy magenta blues. It's just a personal choice.
Yes.
And then cyan, add quite a bit. Let's do shadows. Because a lot of that underneath there still has some green gunked up in it.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, maybe too much magenta. There.
Nice.
Much better. So turning that color balance on and off.
Big difference.
Big difference. And then real quick, I'm going to hit this section of the wave with just a quick like brush to bring in just a tad of the detail of the squid, like octopus tentacle texture.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, because I feel like that wave would be thin enough that you would start to see a little bit through it. Not much, but just a little bit. And obviously that's too much. So then I would do a quick fade. So you have just an itsy bit. Little details.
All about those details.
For sure.
Oh, this is looking so good, Katelin. Let's jump into our artist spotlight. I'm super excited.
Yes. So I want to spotlight Justin Bettman. Whoop. He's like a really popular photographer, so I'm sure some of you guys in the chat have heard of him before, but I just love his work. I mean, I love it. Like there's the lighting and the color. I've followed him for a while now. The thing that like just stands out to me are the sets. And I know he works with like set builders and set designers, which is something that I aspire to do. Like I would love to work with a bigger team of people to actually create something big. But I mean, look at the characters that he like. I mean, it's so unique. Like the first time I saw this image, I mean, it's been stuck in my head for months now, this image. And that's what you aim for, you know, as a photographer, to have your image. I mean, look at, it's a rat meatloaf. Like that's all amazing. Of the details. I think, does he have a close up of the rat? Yeah. Like all of the details that go in to his images are just mind blowing. They're insane. I mean, obviously every single color was very specifically thought of and chosen. Every single prop. I mean, like, I want to be able to like zoom in further than what I'm able to on these photos, because there's just so much going on. Like his color usage is insane. I mean, look at this character. Like what is going on? Like this story of this, you know, crazy hairdresser who like creates these wigs. See, I'm just creating, and look at these giant thumbtacks. That's kind of cool. I'm just creating this story in my head of what's going on. It's just so fun. I don't think I've scrolled through this entire project yet before.
Yeah,
I just get so stuck on that first image, because that first image is just so that's really cool. It leaves an impression for sure. Look at the size of those pearls. Like conceptually, that just tells me everything I need to know about this character that he's creating. Like this woman who's like older with these giant pearls. That's just, you know, she's ostentatious is what she is. She's gregarious. Yes. And you know, I just love it. Like there's so many adjectives that come to mind with his stuff.
This is so fun. Yeah, his like creation of characters and environments really is very special.
Mm-hmm. And then some of the other stuff that he's done, like, oh, there we go. There's the end.
Yeah, give him a like.
Absolutely appreciate that. Like just the lighting, the super soft lighting. Oh, look at the lighting in this one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even. Obviously, I can see at least 2 lights. Probably there's 15 for all I know. Like, there's just so much. Like it's really soft. I love the colors. His use of color is like very, very, very intentional. Mm-hmm. And there always seems to be a lot of atmosphere, whether it's like smoky or not. There's like some of his work, the last project that we just looked at, it's very sharp and very minimal and very clean. And other ones are just full of like atmosphere and detail and texture, like that light glowing in and the pose. It's just so great.
Yeah, top notch like work all around.
Yeah, it's good storytelling is what it is. Like
it is.
It's a story all within a photo, and I mean, look at that. Like I could sit here and just think about the thoughts and motives of each person and like what they're doing there. And like, I don't know, he just has a really good way of constructing a story and illustrating it in very interesting ways. Like it kind of, his works kind of seems like it's obviously very, styled and, he's creating sets and stuff, but in a strange way, it kind of feels like it's documentary, even though it's not. Like it's a styled documentary style. It's like he's capturing this moment that's just is happening in front of him is what it feels like, even though it's probably taken weeks or months to orchestrate and create this moment that's in front of him.
Yeah, it looks like natural and effortless, even though it's the opposite.
Yeah. And then I always wonder how much of the set is actually built. Like, right. I mean, I know people build entire sets. I know like you've built rooms before for your photos. So yeah. In my head, I'm always questioning like, okay, was this actually a location, and how much actual control over details, like, does he specifically choose each one of these black and white photos? If I zoom in, is there a specific meaning to each one of those? Like there's just so much intentionality with the way that like the book is slanted and everything. Just really makes me, oh my gosh, Bryan Cranston. I love Bryan Cranston. He's one of my favorites. Look at that. I would be so intimidated to shoot Bryan Cranston. I didn't even realize that Justin had shot him. Like, whoo. I would be fangirling a little bit too much. I would not have results like this. I don't think, not at all. Like, just look at so I like his combination of cool and warm lighting. So like he has a lot of cool lighting from the back on either side. And then there's a lot of focus of warm lighting up front. And then you even get like a pop of warm lighting in the center with that little like jukebox that's going on back there. Yeah. I think that really helps to like sculpt skin quite a bit.
It does. Yeah. And just makes it more interesting.
Yeah. And I think this is probably actually one of my favorite sets that he's done. I think it's maybe it's just like the color choices in it that get me so much, but like the tennis balls and the pink. And again, this character of this older woman that's like ostentatious and gregarious and just like she is who she is and she likes what she likes. And it's like a little outrageous and out there, but yeah. And this also makes me wonder, like, was this all brought into a studio somewhere, or did he actually shoot on location? Like, I don't know, but his productions seem huge.
Yeah, and it looks fun too. It doesn't look like it's not serious,
Oh no, yeah, he has a lot of humor in his work. Even though her face is serious, this is still such a funny photo. I mean, she's like looking at all the years that she's built up, and she's just like, oh, my life. Look how soft that lighting is, and yet still the skin looks sculpted. This is the sort of photo that just, it makes me want to be able to light that well. Like that's, gosh, like it's so soft, and yet it's not flat at all. There's like so much dimension in there. I wonder how much of that. I know that he's actually done an Adobe Live, so if you guys look him up, he has an Adobe Live that's been passed already, so it's like on YouTube now that you can look up, but he does talk about his retouching. Definitely something to look into. Yeah, he's great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, make sure to give him a follow. Thank you so much for watching along, everyone. These Behance profiles are amazing, and we've linked him up in the chat. So give him a follow, and while you're at it, give Katelin a follow on Behance as well. She's in the chat.
That'd be great. Also. Cool. All right. Well, let's get back to trying to finish this guy up and making him look super polished.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're on the waves right now. I would like to add a little bit more splashes to the edge up here. I'm not sure if I want to do that right now or if I want to kind of save that until a little bit later. I know I want to have a little bit of waves on the other side because it doesn't really make sense for there to be waves just on one side. There needs to be some splashing going on. So let's at least first, let's do the other side of splashes. And this might be a good section. I know we just used it for like the actual splatter, but that was such a small section. You're not going to be able to tell like a repeat in pattern or anything. So
Totally.
I'm just looking for this line of froth because again, that's what I'm going to use as like my seam pretty much. So copy and paste.
And I've got
a
a question for you. What about if you change that to like a screen or a light and blend mode? What do you think that would do?
Let me flip this around because I think this orientation might work a little bit better. Okay, and then since it's on screen, we need to darken up like all the darks that's on there. So let's add a curves layer on top of it. Darken up the darks. Lighten up the lights. Yeah, that seems like a good. Ooh, I don't want to overblast the highlights too much.
Right, yeah.
I don't want to make them too hot. Okay, let's bring the darks more. Yeah.
Just curious if that would save time.
Yeah, it probably would. Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it gives you like kind of weird results.
Right. I think especially on this side, it definitely does. This side, I think it still will for like the froth that's up, that's like stretching over there. I'm like, what is that? No, that's the same file that we're working on right now. Yeah, so the only difference that I wouldn't want to put on screen probably would be this front one because you still want to have, obviously, you know, like the dark blue in the water there. But yeah, for just these areas that are just pure froth, I think that works well. So I'm going to do a layer mask to paint out the whole thing. Oh, and then also for this one, I was wanting this guy to be behind the tentacle a little bit. So let's pull him down. There we go. Drop that curves layer on top still. Okay, so let's paint in this guy. Actually, I totally forget where the edge is, so let's, yeah, this guy. Okay. I think I might still want to hit that with like the rough, rugged brush a little bit just to create like more of a shape, you know, but yeah, let's do, also it's looking a teeny bit too blue again, so I'm gonna have to add some more cyan in there. Brush settings, size jitter, minimum diameter, angle jitter, roundness jitter. I'm on a really soft brush that needs to go up. Okay, space it out a little bit, not too much. I don't want it out here because that's going to take forever to create a line. So still want it to be a line. Scatter a little bit. Do I want it? Well, no. Okay. Count jitter. I don't want to scatter it that much, really. Okay. Okay. All right, let's see what this looks like.
Nice.
I'll use a big brush to begin with just to get like the general shape, and then I'll go back in with the soft one to get like the actual edge. Man, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time talking this long.
Dude, it's a real thing. Yeah, it's easy to underestimate, but yeah, talking and doing Photoshop at the same time, and for a couple hours straight, it's
yeah, my throat is so dry right now.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I have a cup of water right here, but it's just, I feel like I can't pause, I can't break because, oh yeah, there's that thing and this thing, and I don't know, maybe my attention just jumps around too much in the photo, and it's like, no, don't lose that thing. We have to go back and do it.
Exactly. Ugh. You're doing great.
Well, thanks. I hope any people here have like learned a couple things or at least enjoyed seeing something kind of cool come to life.
Yeah, everyone in the chat's loving it. They've been having a fantastic time, and yeah, you've been explaining everything so well, like while you're working, it's really helped out, you know, like keeping us like both technically like in the know, but also have like when you explain your thought process behind like why you're doing stuff, that's been really helpful as well.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. I definitely want to like, because sometimes it just, if I barrel through, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, wait, whoa, I just saw like the screen flash and I have no idea what she just did. So I definitely don't want to leave you guys in the lurch like that.
Definitely.
Okay. That is really saturated. Let me pull that back some. So right now I'm just adjusting the color balance because turning this on and off, you see that he's a little bit too magenta-y. but now I've made it a little bit too saturated. So I love cyan so much that I make things really cyan heavy. And I have to like back it up and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, that is out of control. That's a little bit too much. Yeah, I think maybe it's just a phase I'm going through, but I want to have like cyan skies for everything. It's just cyan, cyan, cyan for absolutely everything. Okay, I don't really want those waves to like be bouncing up too much. A couple of reasons. One, just compositionally, I don't want it to be distracting. But two, also, I kind of like those let's keep those little peekaboo pieces in there. Those are good.
Nice.
But two, also, it's like behind the tentacle. So the one in front, if this tentacle was actually like coming up through the water, probably the one in front is going to be more dominating and like a bigger wave than the one in the back. So, depending on, I guess, the directionality of the octopus tentacle, but compositionally for sure, I definitely want it to be a little bit smaller in the back. Okay, so let's do the same like screen thing and try the frothiness over on top of that line there with the screen. Actually, while I'm already here behind the tentacle, let me drop another one in back here because I want it to like cup the tentacle for sure. So you don't want it to, I actually figured that out like after I did a shot once, like long time ago in college, pretty much, where I'm still just going to use this same because I can warp it and change it. Where I had like, it was a surreal photo of me sitting in a hat and the hat was floating in the water. And I thought it was like so cool. And like the concept was really cool. But I look back now and I'm like, this looks so off and so wrong because I only put waves in the front of it. I didn't put waves like cupping around or behind the hat at all. So that's just little things that you learn as you go. I mean, it's
totally,
live and learn. I learned about the like, oh, that's why that doesn't look right after like 2 years of looking at that image. So you never know. This section right here, I know it's going to look a little too much. So I'm going to like just grab from down below and kind of, I still have it on the all layers select thing. Got to move the bar. All layers. Let's do current layer. Okay. So I'm cloning and to try to get like a little bit different of an edge up there. I didn't want it to look that chunky, really. Looked very chunky. Okay, so let's do the whole screen thing again. So let's turn this to, was it screen or was it light in that way? We did screen, yeah.
Screen, yeah.
Okay, and then I got to, because it's screen is showing all of the light parts of it. So I need to like darken up all the dark, so I need to clip that down. So darkening up the darks to make those disappear.
Nice.
Ooh, oh, that was a little bit too much. My computer's lagging a little bit. Don't want to lose too much detail in that froth, so I got to keep like a little bit of the dark going. That looks better. Okay, so let me mask out the other areas. Whoa. Oh, I'm on the curves layer.
Yeah, there we go.
Creating a layer mask. I'm going to mask out these like little lighter areas that I don't need.
Yep.
Doop-a-doop. Okay, and then I'm going to have to do the same like color balance stuff. I'm not sure if I want the waves that high. I kind of like them that high. I don't know. Let's see. Do I want them lower? Yeah, just a little bit. I don't want it to get too like crazy up in here. Actually, there we go. I can just kind of bring it over.
That looks great.
Yeah. Okay, so color balance these because they're just a teeny. Actually, these aren't as bad, but they are still a teeny bit magenta. So color balance, midtones, less magenta. Bring in some green. That looks pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of actually that other little frothy piece. Wherever I put that. That was up here somewhere. Is that it? No, it's behind it, so it's this one down here. Because I like your method better of the screen. That looks better. Okay, so a couple things still on the waves. The top here on the front wave is popping out to me. It's looking like too dark and too magenta-y, so I'm going to do just like a clipping layer mask on top of that and bring in just some of the like light from behind it.
Yeah.
Make that kind of blend in a little bit better.
Yeah, that helps out a lot.
Yeah. And then also just kind of accentuate the cupping action going over here with the, I caught a little straight line. So let's go back under there. Is it this guy? No, it's the other one. This one. Yep. Okay, so let's fix that line real quick. Nobody saw that.
There we go.
Nice. And then I kind of want to add like a dark area. But since this is screen, I can't really clip it down directly on that because it's not going to show up. So I'm just going to have like a free floating layer, essentially, I think, and try that. See what that looks like. Try it to multiply. Gonna lower the saturation quite a bit because it does not need to be that blue. Okay, and then I'm going to put a layer mask on it and just kind of adjust it because it does not need to also be that big of a shadow. I just want a teeny bit to add a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
Maybe put a little bit more on that edge again. And then same with the chapsticks, I would come in with this tentacle and start to add in some shadow to the edge of the tentacle. I think actually I desaturated that too much. Did I desaturate that all the way? No. Okay. And then, yeah. That's blending a little bit better. Okay, so let's come in and bring like a little bit of a darker edge to the edge of the tentacle. My cat is behind the camera and she keeps laying down and pushing it further. So if I'm moving, because my cat keeps moving. Okay, so tentacle, here we are. Okay, clipping down to, I would want to go above the sparkles probably, because I think the sparkles would kind of cover up the shadow a little bit too much if I made it underneath the sparkles. And again, I know that's super saturated, but we'll deal with that in a minute.
Nice.
Multiply.
We've got just a couple minutes left, just to give you a heads up.
Okay, cool. So we're going to get close to finishing it, but probably will not finish this image. However, that's what happens with advertising. You got to make it like super pristine and very polished. So if you guys want to see the final image, I will probably finish it today and put it up on my Behance profile. But nice. I'll go over at least verbally the things that I plan to still do with it, which is not a whole lot, but a little bit. Okay, so I might want to hit those with a little bit of shadow as well. And since they're also screen, can't clip it directly on there, so I'm just going to do a free floating layer again. Just a little bit of a shadow because that tentacle would probably create just a tad of a darkness behind it. Yeah, that makes it feel like it's like cupped inside the waves a little bit more. So shadows and light, shadows and light, shadows and light. Okay, so waves are good for now. I think that's, I might go, that looks still magenta-y to me, but it's kind of tricky because like the tentacle is a little bit more magenta than what the sky is. So some of that would be bouncing on the waves, but not as much as what I think is right there. So I'll go back in and fix that later. One thing that I did want to show you guys in the last couple of minutes though, if you guys were here yesterday, you remember me talking about whenever I cut out the drops, there were these really pretty like glares, like light glares that were really soft. And I said, when I cut it out, I'm going to like cut over that, but we're going to bring it back later. So this is one of the last steps that I always like to do on a lot of my images is I like to bring in like light hits and light blurs. Yes. So I'm going to do I think I put them in stock. I just grabbed a couple of them. Yeah, I have like 4 different ones here. And they're just on a blank black layer, so you can switch them over to screen. So I'm going to see what one kind of looks the best. This is going to be huge. Oh, I need to lower the size of this, but you can basically see what this is. You can, get these on stock. You can get all sorts of light blurs and light hits and light flares. And this is one of my favorite parts of finishing up an image because it really does polish it up quite a bit. So I'm going to switch that to screen.
Boom. Look at that.
Yeah.
Photorealistic.
This is still a little bit too big, but pretty much. So for my images, especially this one in particular, I like sparkle. I like glitter. I like things that are shiny. So I plan on putting a lot of these in here. And I mean, like anytime I see a strong highlight, one of these bad boys is going in there pretty much. So, I might even try one on the edge over here. Definitely want to try a little bit on the, you know what? I just now saw that there's a reflection of me on that
Oh, look at
chapstick that I need to take care of.
Nice.
Okay, so I will take care of that later. But yeah, so anytime there's a strong highlight up here, and especially when I want to accentuate that it's liquid. So like I really like doing it on the edge of a highlight. Let me put one in there too. On the edge of a highlight that happens to be like right up against something very dark. That's where you really start to see kind of the magic happen. Like you can put it in areas that are light all around and it still will probably show up unless it's just completely blasted white. But it's the areas that have, where to go? It's underneath here. Screen. It's the areas that have this really sharp highlight against really dark. That's where these really shine. And it just, I mean, it makes it look like sparkly and cool. So I'll put some up here on this drop as well. Probably have some in the front that I'll make sure to defocus a little bit on these, like little bubbles and stuff. So anywhere I see a bright highlight, especially on the tentacles, definitely going to do that.
That's fantastic. Katelin, thank you so much for everything. This has been just a lot of fun. And I want to appreciate and give a special thanks to everyone in the chat. So much positivity, so much love for Katelin. This has been such a great couple of days all around. Good vibes. Be sure to stick around for the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew, immediately followed by day 2 of packaging design with Shantanu. And I, for one, can't wait to have you back, Katelin. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you
so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.